One of the things that we really wanted to achieve with this game is a traditional, like, Sunday comics feel to the art style. The kind of overall concept of the game is that the player is sitting down, opening a comic book, and it's sort of like seeing the characters come to life and duke it out on the pages of that comic book. Almost like we're bringing a visual to, like, the imagination, right? And in order to do that, we need that animation to be 2D, but feel like an animated 2D character, not a paper cutout. Generally, in a normal game pipeline, you will have established and, like, pre-designed characters. One of the cool things about Web3 is that we don't, right? They're generative. Because of that, we have to design a system for characters that we don't actually know how they look yet. We've set about developing a extremely unique workflow to work around that, where we have the ability to procedurally combine the sprites of the different traits in a similar way to how we would actually generate the PFP. The reason it's called procedural is because we're going to be building that dynamically in-engine as the game is running. Usually when you think of procedural animation, you think 3D. So that was kind of the first place that we looked at. The problem with that approach is that there is always going to be a degree of, for lack of a better term, 3D-ness to 3D, and basically found that it just wasn't achieving the look that we wanted. And that's why we went back to the drawing board and ultimately said, we want to get a hand animation look. What if we found a way to work with a hand animation studio? So what we ended up doing was we reached out to a fairly well-known purely traditional animation studio, and we kind of pitched this idea to them and said, like, would you be interested in working with us on getting a custom pipeline set up for this so that we can get that look and that feel? And they were down to work with it. Generally, when you're talking about a procedural workflow, you would be talking about a 3D game, because 3D procedurals are still hard to do, but more common. Obviously, if you load into Fortnite, you're going to be equipping different skins, and your character needs to be able to put those different skins on. This is very different in a 2D workflow because we are limited by the perspective, the actual technical perspective of the drawings. You know, if I need to rotate my hand like this, right, I need to have drawings of those different hands. If this is a 3D model, it's simple to just rotate. But because we're working purely in 2D, we're not doing a 3D workaround, we would need to identify, like, what angles of this hand do we actually need to see, and then we would be custom curating, like, hand-drawn illustrations for each angle of that hand to then swap into the rig procedure. Right now, as it is, we found a program that will kind of support what we're doing, and we're working directly with the creators of that program to make custom tooling for our use case. We're also working directly with the studio to make a custom kind of workflow and pipeline to be able to get these assets out in the format that we need to be able to plug them into our game engine. So it's kind of a collaborative process on all possible fronts to be able to marry the best parts of these different programs and skill sets together in a way that will get us the best possible end result. So where we have it right now, we have a rig that is working. Actually, we have multiple rigs that are working and dynamically switching within the engine. We're getting that smooth, fluid, hand-drawn Sunday morning cartoon look, even while actively switching traits in and out of that rig, which is insane, honestly. Like, this is crazy from a games perspective. We've solved a huge hurdle that we were facing, and we're extremely excited about that. As a result of this workflow, the way that we've set it up, we will be able to bring in other characters, and it becomes no longer an engineering problem, it becomes purely an art lift. So this solution and this framework will be flexible and will allow us to use this pipeline and apply it to whatever we want to. As long as that character can be fed through the workflow, we can get that character into a game sprite form at the same level of quality. We've got an amazing team. We've got really solid partners that we're super lucky to be working with. And I think we have all the tools that we need to continue to innovate, continue to push forward, and change the way that Web3 gaming works and change the benchmark for that.